David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL, ultra-endurance athlete, and best-selling author known for pushing the limits of human toughness. But before all that, he was nearly 300 pounds and running from his potential. But one day he decided to make a change. And in just 3 months, he lost nearly 100 pounds to make way to join the Navy SEALs, and the rest is history. Today I'm breaking down how he ate, how he trained, and if this type of extreme transformation is the type of thing that the average person should even try. I know a lot of you want to follow similar things to get similar results, and as a nutrition coach, I reviewed a lot of aggressive weight loss strategies and diets. And I have a feeling Goggins' approach is no exception. So let's take a closer look. What did he get right? What would I do differently? And what can you learn from it? Let's start from the beginning. Before the David Goggins we know, the Navy SEAL, running ultra marathons, successful speaker and author. Before all of that, he was working in pest control, but also had a pretty sedentary lifestyle, eating a bunch of highly processed foods. According to his book, which I read to dig into what his diet looked like before when he was nearly 300 pounds, this is what his diet looked like. There's details of a typical breakfast, chocolate milkshake, a bunch of processed donuts, a breakfast cooked by his mom. Now, as far as the previous diet goes, there's a lot to speak to here. So he talked about food as a drug, maybe indicating some emotional eating, addiction-like behavior. Food itself isn't addictive, but it can mask a lot of things. Extreme overeating, like huge portions, 8 cinnamon roll donuts, bacon, cereal. It sounds like maybe to the point of like binge style eating. Again, not sure what he's running from, if it's from his potential or what he's trying to mask, but can definitely be a pretty valid coping strategy. The thing that I'm noticing the most is like super processed. It's almost made up entirely of like added sugar foods, ultra processed foods, very low in nutrients. This sounds like routine behavior because his mom knew his exact breakfast. So this was like a habitual thing. This was not occasional. This is something that he was doing over and over again. He definitely had a sedentary lifestyle, like nothing like it was now in terms of, he's talking about after a night shift, he ate large meals and then rested without much physical activity. It doesn't sound like in terms of being aware of what he's eating, there's much nutritional awareness there outside of the eggs. And I guess you could make the case of the bacon. There's no mention of like whole foods, definitely no fruits and vegetables or hydration. Yes, there's some protein in the eggs and bacon, but not really lean sources or anything along those lines, and no focus on health or balance. And it sounds like his family and the environment that he was in was reinforcing this behavior, and it was somewhat normalized. So that's where Goggins started. But after a big wake-up call, he completely overhauled his diet and his lifestyle. He committed to an intense training regimen and started doing a very restrictive form of dieting to lose the weight. Let's break that part down, and I'll share my thoughts along the way. All right, here's the extreme diet and exercise routine. So the daily routine is 4 a.m. wake up. This is like a fitness influencer's dream. Pre-workout snack, a banana. Morning workout is a 2-hour bike ride. Middle of the day is study for what I'm assuming is some sort of exam. A 2-hour swim session. Afternoon is a gym session focused on high rep weight training. For dinner, grilled chicken, vegetables, and brown rice. And evening, another bike ride. Is there no food in between there? Just the banana? I mean, this sounds like quite a bit of fasting to begin with, which I'll chat a little bit more about in a second, but that's it for right now. Obviously, this is a really intense training regimen, also paired with a very restrictive diet, not just from the types of food he was eating, but also the amounts of food he was eating, as well as the timing of it. It's almost restrictive on all fronts. Now, this isn't something that I would recommend to anyone. I love huge goals and massive transformations and doing things that help you become the best version of yourself. But if you're eating this level of food, which is probably around like 800 calories per day, and pairing it with that level of training, both strength and cardio, you're not really doing yourself any favors. You could get similar results eating a lot more food. He probably got these results in spite of what he was doing, not because of it. Now, there's an argument to be made that it was his mindset and toughness that allowed him to get these results and stick to it for as long as he did. But most people are not going to be able to maintain that level of deficit, because think about how much energy is being burned through the exercise. We're talking about, I think I read through like 6 hours of training there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 6 hours of training with so little amount of energy to fuel that training, there comes a point where you're just burning through more muscle as well as some fat than you need to. And that's not going to set you up for success long term. At a certain level, your body is going to ramp up the appetite and decrease your energy levels that will make this training regimen really hard to maintain. And your appetite and hunger and cravings will probably make it that it's like almost uncontrollable not to eat more food. It's going to come at you from both sides. The fact that he didn't cave in just a few days shows how mentally locked in he was. I've seen other YouTubers, I've reviewed the videos, try this for just a day and they're miserable and they can't do it. So the fact that he did it for 3 months shows you how mentally tough and dialed in he was. That being said, there are still a few lessons that we can learn from this. First off, in order to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. You need to be taking in less energy than you're burning to actually extract energy from your fat tissue and lose weight from the right places. That's the science of this stuff. Now, with that being said, you don't need to eat under 1,000 calories and train for multiple hours per day in order to make up that deficit. A more sustainable starting point would be to set up a diet that allows you to be in a 250 to 500 calorie deficit per day below your maintenance calories as a starting point. You may lose less weight, but you'll keep much more muscle, which will allow you not just to become a smaller version of yourself. Second of all, while the diet is nutritionally lacking, mostly because of the portion sizes, if he was to eat those choices in larger amounts more frequently, it probably would be much more balanced. But for the most part, the food choices were good. Pre-workout snack of a banana is a smart choice. It's going to give you some carbohydrates as well as some potassium. And the chicken, rice, and broccoli are going to be whole food sources of protein and nutrients, vegetables. Those are all great. You just need to eat them in larger amounts. So it is hard to actually critique the nutrient content here because everything is so restrictive and not balanced. It's tough to really dive into that stuff or even a place to start to compare. But what I am interpreting about what he's listing as eating compared to his training is that he would probably need much more electrolytes and especially nutrients coming from his food to perform optimally. And although his dinner was balanced with protein, carbohydrates, and some vegetables, it just isn't enough food overall, especially when you consider, is there a lunch meal in there at all? I know there's probably some fasting, but there needs to be more food overall at dinner if that's the case. So there really just isn't enough total calories to support this level of exercise. And again, even if the goal is to lose weight, you still would want to do that in a way that allows you to perform well in training, to support training while losing weight. These don't need to be two completely different things. Most people that would try something like this could probably do it for a short period of time, a few days, then they would go overboard in a different social situation with food or just due to the fact of having extreme hunger and cravings, or even worse, follow it for a few days or a longer period of time and seriously harm themselves through not having enough calories overall. So those are my thoughts on the weight loss phase. Very extreme. Most people shouldn't do it, but it did get him to his goal. I think if there's anything else to take from this, it is the mental toughness aspect. And when you decide that you're going to do something, that you do it. A lot of people have that tipping point and they resort to extreme things and it works. The thing you got to think about is, did they get there in spite of what they were doing, not because of it? The good news is he didn't stick to that plan forever. After losing the weight, he did become a Navy SEAL and was accepted into that. The rest is history, and now he eats differently. Now Goggins follows a very different approach. There's actually some video content in this. I'm not pulling it and piecemealing it together from different things he said in the book. So here's what he's doing today.
So as far as managing my diet, what I eat, it always varies. But the biggest thing about diet for me is timing. I truly believe in timing. I shut off meals by 6:30. I don't snack at all.
There's a lot of good, obviously, evidence, but as well as like practicality around structure when you're eating. So even if the food that he's eating varies in the nutrient composition, if he's managing the window that he's eating within, like doing some fasting, which he typically is if he's like stopping eating at 6:30, he's just extending the fasting window. Usually people do it in the morning, but at night is like similar thing. If that allows you to manage calories like totally, that is helpful for body composition and athletic performance if you can eat enough of the right amount of food and the right level of nutrients within the fed window would be the biggest thing. And then for a lot of people, especially like adults that are looking to improve their body composition, get leaner and gain some muscle, snacking is one of those things that we've been led to believe is essential to be healthy, right? Like just snack on more healthy, nutrient-dense foods and have them available to you. That does lead to overeating in a lot of people.
If you eat 4 meals a day, 5 meals a day, whatever it is, do not snack in between meals. And for me, breakfast, I'm a big believer in having a small bowl of oatmeal with protein.
Yeah, I mean, oatmeal, one of the healthiest carb choices there is. Some fiber, slow digesting carbs, you add some protein into it. We're talking about a balanced breakfast. I think he's probably leaning a little too much into like an outdated style of thinking around nutrient timing and it improving your metabolism, needing to eat 4 or 5 smaller meals per day. But starting the day with oatmeal and some protein powder or Greek yogurt, something to add protein to the oatmeal or have it on the side, it's a super smart thing to do, and probably something they should have been doing in the first diet instead of just a banana.
So basically my breakfast is nothing but about 300 calories, because once again, you wake up in the morning time, a lot of people want to go to Denny's, IHOP, or have some big ass fucking breakfast.
Yeah, compared to like, takeout food, restaurant food that I'm assuming is hyper processed. When we talk about Denny's or IHOPs, we're talking about like traditional breakfast or pancakes or anything like that, that usually are super high calorie, very processed, tons of sugar and fat, and not a lot of protein or proportionally a lot of protein. Like it doesn't go very far. So compared to that, yeah, absolutely the oatmeal and protein is a great option.
Your metabolism has stopped.
That doesn't happen. Like your metabolism never stops. And it's really only, especially by not eating like more food or larger calorie meals, it definitely doesn't stop. If anything, it increases to break down that food and then provides energy for, the exercise you're doing and stuff. But the biggest thing being the meal timing aspect has been debunked like quite a bit in terms of it doesn't matter if you eat small, frequent meals and more of them or larger meals and less frequent meals. If the calories and those macronutrients are matched, the impact on your metabolism is very similar.
Small meals throughout the day with protein in every one of the meals, very little carbohydrates unless I'm running big mileage. So that's my thing.
It's probably a good idea to make sure your energy requirements and carb requirements fall in line with how much exercise you're doing. That's a smart thing. But outside of that, you don't necessarily need to be eating low carb just because you want to get leaner. Again, getting lean comes down to, and losing weight comes down to being in a calorie deficit. And you can do that through still eating carbs. You just have to make sure that they fall within a calorie deficit while eating enough protein to support your muscle mass. So there's a lot of good pieces here, but a few other things that just like for the most part aren't necessary. Or maybe a little outdated, but based on everything that he's mentioned so far about his diet, we can piecemeal together some good stuff overall. For the most part here, especially like his current diet, there's some good things to build off of in terms of protein in every meal, some structure around the total amount of meals that you're eating on a day-to-day basis. Like that type of thing in structure builds habits, and people can start to be more aware of the total amount of food that they're eating and some awareness around their food choices. Those are all good things. Even fasting in some cases is a smart thing to do. Like if it helps you control for calories and make good choices while still being able to eat enough food to support training and fall in line with, your energy requirements, good thing overall. Some of the cons here though is if you're too keyed in on needing to stop eating at 6:30 and having to keep your carbs super low at each and every meal, maybe you get results, but it's not due to, the underlying scientific principles like energy balance and optimal macronutrient intake. And what I could see happening for a lot of people is periods of doing the plan well, which would essentially be under eating, leading to overeating when going completely off the rails in different social situations, or willpower is very much a finite resource and you might not have as much as this individual here who, could be the world leader in that. So it's one of those things where you could do a lot better job, and I hate to use the word sustainable, but do it in a way that allows you to continue to do it over longer periods of time and not go so far in the other direction, which is going to be a good idea for you overall. And the last note is, especially when it comes to fasting, if fasting allows you to eat in a way that manages your overall calorie intake so it falls within your goals, super smart thing to do. You don't necessarily need to do it though and cut eating off at 6:30 just because someone has told you to. Like you could do it and delay your first meal in the morning. There's no magic to it being in the evening, and there's no magic to, if you do enjoy snacking, fitting those snacks within, your overall energy demands. If that's something you like to do and enjoy doing, this game is an entire game of checks and balances and compromises towards your goals. There's no good or bad things, just better or worse in the context of what you're trying to achieve. Now, here's some of my final thoughts, guys, especially going through, number one, Goggins' transformation is incredible. And when you decide you're going to do something and commit to it, sometimes a more restrictive approach is necessary. Like it is. It allows you to become so singular and focused in your action steps that you're either doing it or not doing it. And for a period of time, that can be really helpful for a lot of people. But for many people, you can do similar things over longer periods of time without having to be so restrictive, which in most cases is going to give you a higher likelihood of success. So most people don't need or even shouldn't try such an extreme approach. They'd be much better off eating in a more moderate calorie deficit, eating higher protein in a way that allows them to stay in that deficit because they're not as hungry, but also maintain the muscle mass that they do have. If I was to take anything away from this video and the combination of videos, I would say in the extreme approach, just eat that same dinner at lunch and double up the total amount of food there. And instead of just a banana, add in the oatmeal and protein from the last or current nutritional strategy, and you'd have a pretty balanced approach within there and a lot more energy to go around to support training. And add that to more gradual increases to movement. It doesn't need to be 6 hours of training per day, but strength training 3 or 4 times per week, 10,000 steps a day, keeping active and moving, emphasizing whole food sources when possible, and ultimately finding a routine that fits your lifestyle that you can do both now and also in some way down the road is a smart thing to do. Again, I'm not of the belief that you can't do sprints and things that are hard for certain periods of time. I think that's important. I think it teaches you a lot about yourself and you get to develop some mental fortitude and toughness. With that being said, it doesn't need to be this extreme. The key here is consistency, not perfection. Doing tough things is important, but you want to be able to do that long enough to actually see results. And I'm not sure that anyone would be able to do that following this plan. Now, if you found this video helpful and this review of Goggins' diet helpful, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more evidence-based reviews of different nutrition, fitness, and health routines. And if you're curious about how other high performers eat, check out this review I did of Alex Hormozi's $100 million diet. You're gonna find my full breakdown of that right here in this video. So check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video.